Continue presenting without the
Sorry, I'd not started recording.
you can
What?
you can just present without the slides. We listen.
Eros love. Mm-hmm. So the limits of Eros love is not enough on its own. It will fail on its own because it's a mere sexual desire. It's often abused and misused and results in broken hearts. And that's because attraction is subject to change. The people who've been married for long will tell you that they look nothing like the way they looked when they first met. So you can lose control and it can become a tyrant, justifying anything in the name of love. For example, the popular idea right now is that love and sex are the same thing. So if you love me, you would sleep with me. There's a danger of taking each other for granted. It needs context and structure according to the God's love. Mhm. Okay. Is there somebody? I'm seeing some names there. Or can you? I really don't know what to do.
Dr. Ida, I was saying you can continue presenting without the slides. We listen if they're giving you a lot of problem.
Okay, so then how do I exit the slideshow? Okay. Second type of love is filial love, friendly, affectionate, brotherly love. And the question that's asked in this kind of relationship is, do you see the same thing that I see? Okay, there's no physical sexual attraction. There's an emotional, mental connection. For example, with friends, teammates, there's a shared interest, truth, insight, passion. For example, for those of us in the pro-family and pro-life movement, we've made very good friends because we're all looking at the same thing, same vision and mission. There's a lot of loyalty, commitment, camaraderie, and sacrifice. So according to C.S. Lewis, and I do concur with this is the happiest and most fully human of all the loves. It's the crown of life and the school of virtue. Unfortunately, the modern world, in comparison, ignores it. So one thing we'd really like the young people to know is that friendship, love, it will be the most gratifying to them. When all the other loves have ended, it's the one that will stay. And so we probably need to have a complete session on just friendship, because I feel that that's really missing. You know, these days you can just block somebody, you just unfriend somebody, you just ghost somebody. And it has really cheapened the value of friendship. So what makes filial love special? There's no obvious biological function, like, you know, with storage. You must love your baby. If your baby is to survive, you need to be devoted to that baby. In Eros love, it has a biological function of propagating the human race. But this one, it has no obvious biological function. You choose it freely, you work for it, and then you can can choose who enters your inner circle. And this is an act of very deep trust and respect. And also, there's no jealousy in it, ideally. In fact, if you bring more pro-life and pro-family people to my friends, and you introduce me that this is a new person and they also have the same vision and mission, then I become their friend. So it's really a very, very attractive, at least according to me, it's a very attractive kind of love which lasts. And where it falls short is where people tend to use one another. For example, someone can complain, so and so only calls me when they need me. And also another thing that can happen is that it becomes an exclusive clique that excludes others. You'll find that it's very important to order all the types of love to agape kind of love. Okay, then there's storge, which is the familial love. This one is related to kinship and blood, sharing the same blood. It's natural, it's instinctive, and it's ever present. So it's between parents and their children, between siblings, close relatives, yeah? So you all share a common history, you share a same household, you have memories together, some good, some bad. And it is this kind of love is given before it's earned. It's the least discriminating. You don't need to be particularly attractive or admirable. You just need to be mine, you know, my sister, my brother, my mother. Yeah, so that is a storge. Okay, the strength and fragility of storge. The family of origin is the first school of life. And this kind of love is the foundation of all the other loves, otherwise named as the bedrock. So it's my first understanding of conditional or unconditional love, depending on how the family dynamics, if you're in a functional family or a dysfunctional family. So it's the vital life force of all other love manifestations that you'll experience in the rest of your life. What makes it very fragile is that it's natural, and so it can become a default expectation and a demand. So the family members take each other for granted, you know. You must love me because I'm your sister. You must love me because I'm your mother, that kind of thing. So that is the limitation of this kind of love. Mhm. The next kind of love, the fourth one, is called philautia, and this is what you call healthy self-love, also from the ancient Greek philosophy. So it's good to know that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Yeah. Healthy self-worth and compassion, a healthy appreciation of yourself. In order to love others, you must feel your own well. So friendly feelings for others are usually an extension of friendly feelings for yourself. And it's a very necessary foundation for personal well-being. So how to practice philautia is self-awareness. You need to know your worth, your self-esteem. You know, the dignity of a human person comes from the fact that we're all made in God's image and likeness, male and female, and we belong to God, Almighty God of all creation. So have self-compassion, self-acceptance, unconditional self-love. Practice self-care in all the areas of well-being, and cultivate a positive, loving inner dialogue. This means that you need to talk to yourself kindly. Sometimes we talk to ourselves so badly that in such a way that you never ever talk to any of your friends like that, because we're bound to make mistakes. They're bound to fail sometimes. So always have a positive inner dialogue. And setting boundaries is very important to protect your peace in this kind of love. Okay, it's important to mention that it's possible, there's an unhealthy self-love called narcissism, and there are people with the narcissistic personality disorder. It's very destructive, self-centered, and obsessed. Actually, these people, though they're very prideful and they seem to be love themselves, they actually hate themselves. They do not love themselves. And There's somebody called Dr. Ross Rosenberg who has written The Human Magnet Syndrome. And they at two opposite ends of the spectrum, you have these two kinds of people attracted to one another. People with narcissistic personality disorder tend to attract people with self-love deficit disorder. It used to be called codependence because people noticed a strange behavior in people who were looking after or related to people struggling with substance abuse disorder, yeah? So chronic caretaking, self-sabotaging, trying to control the uncontrollable, sacrificing and their whole lives, completely disappearing and losing themselves into this person who's addicted, caretaking this person who's addicted. So now he has described it as self-love deficit disorder. And at the base of it is attachment trauma, which is experienced in the family or of origin. And then there's something called core shame, pathological loneliness, self-love deficit disorder, and that is at the peak. The opposite of this is self-love abundance. So this is some of the things we see in the counseling room. Then we go to number 5, which is pragma, enduring love, ancient Greek word for business-like. And you've seen people who've been married for decades. They've known each other deeply and consciously, and sometimes they even look alike. They come to look alike. It has matured over time. They will have a unique harmony, and their focus is long-term compatibility and shared goals, not romance, you know. Of course, the flutter of love has gone by that time, but they still they prioritize teamwork, mutual support, and stability. It's a very beautiful thing to witness. That is something that I witnessed before my father rested after 54 years of marriage. By the end of it, they were very, very happy. They've learned how to make compromises for each other, to serve one another, and to be patient, and there's commitment. So those who are married, that's a very good thing to aspire to. Then we go to agape, which is the selfless, unconditional, God, divine, spiritual love. And this is the love with which God loves humanity. So all the loves should aspire to this. It is the highest form of love. Some people call it okay. It's countercultural because and counter of what our fallen human nature is, because forgiving is extremely hard. It tells us we must forgive our enemies, we must pray for them. If somebody takes your shirt, you give him your coat, you know. Very, very difficult to practice, but so it needs the grace of God. It's not something you can do at a natural level. You need a supernatural help. In Christianity, this is the most important kind of loves. Very famous verse is 1 Corinthians 13, 1-13. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not self-seeking. It talks about what it is not and what it is. It's a very beautiful verse. So it is driven by the redemptive goodwill for all, wanting everybody to go to heaven. After all, that's our purpose in life. A very foundational, radical, unconditional. It gives direction and maturity to all the others. So the true measure of love is felt by the other. So it doesn't truly help when you say, I love so-and-so, but that person, they don't feel that you love them. So you're just talking theoretically. Yeah. So it does not depend on conditions, performance. It loves unlovable people, undeserving people, flawed people. It gives freely without selfish desires and expectations. Infinite empathy and enduring compassion. It freely accepts people and freely forgives. So the true image of love is that of God himself. When in John 3:16, which says that God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. So even on the cross, Jesus was telling God to forgive them for what they were doing to him as he was being tortured. So this is our deepest need in our spirit, to be loved unconditionally by God. And it should be guided by wisdom. It's not blind. And pure love flows from a surrendered soul. So if you watch The Passion of the Christ, this one will really help you to understand what unconditional love is. And this is the true, genuine love that we all aspire to. So from this, we can move to describe conjugal love. And conjugal love is actually a form of eros. And you find that there's a lot of preparation for weddings. I don't know whether there's enough preparation for marriage. That is why the best time to talk to people about love is before they've even met somebody. Because it is defined as profound, enduring affection between husband and wife. And it goes beyond mere romance. It's aimed for a lifelong partnership, and it is the cornerstone of a resilient, happy marriage. It's not that the marriage is perfect, but if there's conjugal love, there's a good understanding of what it is. And this is the best explanation of marriage, Genesis 2:24, marriage as a natural institution. So you'll find that wherever you go in the world, even like the people who were exiled from their home countries and they went to live in the Americas as slaves, it's a natural institution. Men and women will come together, they will form a family. So it was the first ever male-female relationship. And the best explanation is Genesis 2:24. This is why a man leaves his father and mother and becomes attached to his wife, and they become one flesh. So by a man, you can see that there's maturity. He leaves, so that is transition. He leaves his father and mother, which is the model of a complete family, and becomes attached or cleaves to his wife, and that means he starts a new family, and his wife is complementary. Women were created to be helpers to their husbands, and it was found that it was not good for man to be alone. And they became, that is a process of learning, friendship, and trust, one flesh. And that shows a deep intimacy between two people, not just physical, but spiritually. We're made of mind, body, and spirit. So that is the best explanation of marriage, Genesis 2:24. Okay. So then what are the purposes and ends of marriage? There are three purposes and ends of marriage. One is the good of the spouses, a mutual help. You are supposed to be each other's ladder to heaven. The second one is the procreation and education of children unto eternal life. So parents are not owners of the children, but stewards of God's children. You're co-creators with God. So bring each child to the fullness of knowledge of God, to know him, love him, and serve him, and be happy with him in the next. The third one is it is the remedy for the sexual appetite. Yeah. So there are three vows we make at the altar. And the reason why it's at an altar is because we're supposed to be completely submitted and self-sacrificial. It's not halfway, meet me halfway kind of thing. When it's a meet me halfway kind of thing, it's bound to fail. So the three main vows we make at the altar is finances, for richer, for poorer, I will not leave you. Health, in sickness and in health. And unlovability or challenges. People do change in character sometime, and it can be very disappointing. And you can say, man, I didn't sign up for this. Yeah. So that's why you have to go and make those vows, because it's a very serious calling and it's a vocation, and it's not something that can just be ended casually. So the essential characteristics of conjugal love, according to Humane Vitae, which was written by Pope Paul VI. He was writing in response to the challenge of contraception, because marriages was starting to fail when people started using contraceptives in the early 1960s. And then he was challenged to say, what are you going to say about contraception? Because the Catholic Church has always been against contraception. And he said it's a very bad thing that would happen. And then he wrote this Humanae Vitae to describe what marital love is. And it's actually 58 years later, because that was 1968. He actually predicted that with contraception, you'll have an increase in marital infidelity. That has happened. A general lowering of moral standards. That has happened. A loss of respect for women. That has happened. And coercive government intervention in citizens' reproductive lives. So women being forcibly sterilized against their will and that kind of thing later. And the reason was because the world was being told that it was the people were saying that the world was overpopulated. It turned out to be a lie. So it's fully human. That means we involve body and soul. There's a total self-giving, unity between one man and one woman. The third one is that it's faithful and exclusive. It is indissoluble. It's a covenant, not a contract. And it's fruitful. So you need to be open to life in marriage. But God, in his mercy, has made us women fertile only 4 to 6 days in a month. I happen to be a fertility education coach, and I teach natural family planning, which is very, very doable. So this one shows that the world is not overpopulated at all. China, the Africa is, this is Africa. China can fit into it. India can fit into it. Europe, United States, Eastern Europe, Japan, and all that comes to a total of 4.1 billion. And yet the population in Africa is 1.2 billion. So this is the overpopulation myth that they were using to force people to use contraceptives, and it was found to be a lie. Okay, so now I'll go to authentic sexuality and human dignity, because it's very much, you cannot talk about love without talking about authentic sexuality and human dignity. Sexuality comes from the word sex. It can either mean the state of being male or female. And the language today is that sex is assigned at birth, but that is very wrong language. Our sex is actually assigned by God at conception. Yeah. So when the baby is born, the midwife or whoever receives the baby just makes an observation, a scientific observation, and records it. So this thing of saying that people are assigned a sex at birth is not true. So we are different. This is a female and this is a male, but complementary. The word sex can also mean sexual activity, including specifically sexual intercourse. In marriage, we call it the marital embrace because we don't use the same language. With animals, you talk about reproductive health and mating. But with human beings, we talk about procreative health and marital embrace, because that is what is most fitting for our dignity as made in God's image and likeness. So the purpose of the marital embrace is, one, the unity of the spouses, and that's why God made it pleasurable, and this is very good. And then procreation of children. So we are co-creators with God, and the whole idea is to populate heaven with new souls. So the role of men and women is different. We have primary roles and we have secondary roles. And the primary roles that cannot be abdicated, the primary masculine responsibility is protection of the female and their offspring until maturity. He creates a conducive environment of provision materially and in other areas of well-being. The primary feminine role is nurturing life in her womb and thereafter. So these two roles cannot be interchanged. They're the primary roles. They're secondary roles. For example, a woman can also be a Proverbs 31 wife, in which means that she also helps to provide, because men have the 5 P's: priest, protector, provider, present, and prophet. But women can also help with the income. And then, household chores can be done by both. So those are the secondary roles. Because there's a lot of controversy about roles. The marital embrace, as you can see, we are designed for compatibility. The marital embrace, we have to talk about these things because sexuality has been so perverted that you can't take knowledge for granted, that people know what these things, what the proper names for these things are. So the main genitals, the husband delivers his life-giving seed into his wife, as you can see. The wife is the lock, and the husband is the key. So we're made completely compatible and complementary, physically, emotionally, psychologically. The female genitals receive the male seed, facilitate fertilization, implantation, growth, birth, and nursing of the child. The husband is the giver, and the wife is the receiver. Okay. So procreation is only possible between a man and a woman. And the primary natural end is procreation. Life begins at conception, fertilization. God infuses a soul after that. So we as parents, when we engage in the marital embrace and there's a child is conceived, we are co-creators with God. Okay, so the spiritual roles of sexual intercourse: men bear the greatest responsibility. Number one, it consummates the marriage. So persons of the same sex cannot get married. It's not called a marriage because they cannot consummate their marriage. The second spiritual function of the marital embrace is unity. It's the deepest and most intimate form of self-giving and communion that you can have between husband and wife. 3 is a sacrificial prayer, calling on God to make the couple parents. So every time you engage in sexual intercourse, you're actually praying to God to make you a parent, whether you're married or not. And in a sacrificial prayer, you have a priest. In this case, the priest is the husband. You have the sacrifice, which is his life-giving seed. And the holy altar is the womb of the wife. Okay? So always know that. It should not be anything like an accident that you go to hospital and say, we do not know how we got pregnant. Because the first question we will ask is, did you engage in sexual intercourse? And if you did, it was a prayer to become a parent. There's even no contraceptive that's 100% effective. So always be knowing that once you engage, a baby can be the result. Yeah. So what is responsible parenthood? We really need to talk about that because of the propaganda. Responsible parenthood does not mean not having children. Because if there are no children, there's no parenthood. So how can that be responsible parenthood? People are talking about responsible parenthood. People are actually getting married and saying they don't want, or not getting married at all. And when they do get married, they're saying they don't want children. And actually in the Catholic Church, if it is found out that you specifically do not want children, then that marriage can be annulled, to null and void. Because that we've talked about the purpose of marriage. So sometimes you have grave motives and due respect to the moral law. For example, very severe health conditions, and you need to avoid for the time being or for an indeterminate period a new birth. So the only evil on earth is sin, yeah? And having children is not an evil. There seems to be an attitude that children are a burden. People are posting videos that children are a burden and that children are a gift. So the contraceptive mentality is really very prevalent, and Kenya tends to be very westernized. And so we have gotten that disease of saying that children are a burden. Now, in my experience, yes, they're not cheap, definitely, but kila mtoto anazaliwa na kisahani chake. And natural family planning works. And that means what I've just said is that when God sends a child, he will send the means. So do not be afraid of a child, because the best gift for your existing child, is a sibling, not material things. Okay? So what are the sexual deviations and perversions against God-ordained sexuality? We can actually call them masturbation at different levels of sophistication, because the purpose has been defiled. And you know what masturbation is? Masturbation is self-gratification, completely sterile. That is a sexual deviation. So any other sexual experience than that described above. For example, they talk about anal and oral sex, but actually the mouth and anus are digestive organs. So that's not even sex. Contraceptive sex is telling a lie with your body. So your body is telling your spouse, I give myself to you completely and I accept you completely. But your hand is behind your back saying, I don't like your fertility. Hiyo sijakubali nayo. So that is a lie. And when you keep on telling a lie with your body, it will enter into all your aspects of your relationship. Actually, there are many couples who are not happy, and they're feeling used, especially the woman, and they don't know why. So if you're using contraceptives, this could be a reason why you're not happy, because you're lying to your spouse with your body. And as women, we really hate being taken for granted. So when for example, you're swallowing a pill, hormonal contraceptives, they mess your system completely. So you're available every day for sexual intercourse, but sex doesn't happen every day. It's the quality that matters, and that's what comes with natural family planning. Fornication is when both are unmarried. Adultery is when at least one of them is married. There's rape, there's defilement, and that is when you use force or with an underage person. There's also rape in marriage. And this is something that really needs to be clear, that it can actually happen when there's no full consent. Pornography is when you're watching instead of performing. And there's actually a pornography pandemic, which is really, really destroyed families and society. And we'll probably need to just have a webinar on pornography. It has a negative impact on normal marital sexual activity in the future. There are soul ties. So if you're married, I'm just giving an example, and on your wedding night, your husband has a body count of 3, you have a body count of 3. Actually, according to the spiritual realm, there are 8 people in that room. Because sex is something that is so, so pervasive and so, so deep, that your spirit is involved, your mind is involved, not only your body. So, and you need to get healing and deliverance from that. Otherwise, you'll always be comparing your spouse to your former lovers. Then there's the sexual and reproductive health and rights ideology. Right now, we're dealing with the surrogacy bill and in vitro fertilization. Everything to do with sexual and reproductive health and rights is perversion. It has nothing to do with health. And that's why we talk about it a lot. And we've had several sessions. If you check back on YouTube, you'll be able to see those sessions that we've talked about. Surrogacy, is when somebody is carrying a baby and with the aim of giving up the baby at the end of her pregnancy. This is totally, totally against nature. IVF, children being conceived in test tubes, And then we have so many embryos lying in fridges all over the world. And we said that life begins at conception. Each and every one of those embryos is a human person. How much more time do I have? We started at 20:07, and now, so it seems like I have about 10 more minutes. Okay, so anybody working for sexual and reproductive health and rights organizations, it's very good to be knowing that it's a depopulation agenda on steroids, abortion, pleasurable and safe sexual experiences for all age groups from the age of 5, LGBTQ issues, lack of parental consent, sex work, legalization of same-sex marriages. All these are perversions of what we've talked about. The government to provide cross-sex hormones, gender reassignment surgeries. This has nothing to do with health. This is all witchcraft. Sexual and reproductive health needs of adolescents, meaning contraception and abortion, to include safe abortion. There's no such thing as safe abortion because it's the deliberate killing of the preborn person. Comprehensive sexuality education is a crucial component of sexual health, telling children that their gender is a spectrum and that sexual pleasure is their right, masturbation and all that. So all this is about getting children and recruiting them to be the future customers of contraception, abortion, homosexuality, prostitution, and transgenderism. Okay, so pornography needs to be mentioned. So it's a multiple billion-dollar industry. You have Hugh Hefner, 1960, there was the first Playboy magazine. Now it has become so hardcore that it's making people pedophiles, it's breaking up marriages. It is really, really destroying the society. And it's very much connected with masturbation. Recently, the owner of OnlyFans died at 43. And by the time of his death, he was estimated to be 4.7 billion. But it is really something that is destroying the society. And Hugh Hefner said that he started Playboy as a personal response to the hurt and hypocrisy of our Puritan heritage. I don't know how true that is, but the church sometimes and religious people have presented sexuality in a very unfriendly way. And so I'm hoping that this session will change that, and you'll see that the marital embrace, the beauty of children, the beauty of marriage, the beauty of family, will change that perception. So pornography is a removal of real or simulated sex acts from the intimacy of partners, displaying them to a third party. And it's a very grave perversion. Even as a married couple, you should not be watching pornography to stimulate each other. It violates the dignity of the participants. Those people you see in those movies are all human beings, and many of them are actually dead by the time you're watching it, either through suicide or drug addiction. That's very common. Okay. So sex is a very special gift from God for procreation and unity. Men must sow the seed very carefully. The capacity to nurture life in a woman's most precious gift and should be guarded well. So women need care and support during pregnancy and childbirth. A child needs 18 to 24 years of nurturing and stewardship by parents. So you stop being a child when you can support yourself and leave your parents' house. And their commandments related to this, that with the 6th commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, honor your father and your mother. So some ways you can prevent the temptations, hints for avoiding premarital sex. Remain rooted in Jesus Christ and his teachings, dress modestly, work to become independent of your parents. Don't start dating until you are ready for the responsibility of family life. Don't go to each other's houses or be alone together. Avoid physical contact, music that is sexually stimulating, pornography. Avoid alcohol and drugs. Make sure you see your drink being opened and drink all of it at the same sitting. Avoid parties by people you don't know, and especially if they are at night. If you have to go to a party and you're a lady, they suggest you wear trousers, especially jeans. Make sure you know the company, have an independent means of transport. Your phone must be charged. That. Avoid bar hopping. Remember, most of the time, rape is perpetrated by somebody who is known to you. So we would have another webinar later on this year. Relations experience, the relationship stages, the importance of each stage, what should happen at each stage, where relationship challenges arise from. There are 4 relationship stages before marriage: singlehood, general dating, exclusive dating, and engagement. Being single is looked down on by our society today. You're 33 years old, you're a lady, then over Christmas, your aunties are nagging you. Tatuletea mtu lini, So there's a very bad attitude towards singlehood, yet it is the most important stage of getting to know yourself, getting to know God, love yourself, and know your purpose. So let's not be looking down on singlehood, yeah? So the stages of the relationships, they come in there. Singlehood. So choose between family life or apostolic celibacy when you're single. Know the purposes of marriage. We've talked about that. Know and love yourself. Heal from your childhood trauma. Then there's general dating. We call it data collection data. Are they a Christian? Are you a Christian yourself? Are you practicing your faith? You need to have your negotiables, your non-negotiables. And are your objectives and purposes synchronized? You should start 1 to 2 years before marriage. Exclusive dating and courtship is evaluating a mate and you involve your family. Then engagement and bride price is showing commitment in our culture. And then the lady is taught how to use the fertility cycle for birth spacing. Then marriage is vows before God and witnessed by the community. And the sexual intercourse is consummating the marriage, which remains exclusive to the couple. So the best teacher is your spouse. It's not about having a high body count. Extramarital sex is the only experience in the whole world that adds absolutely no value to your CV. So it's not about having a high body count. That one will actually jeopardize your marriage. And you have like these 2 representatives of marriage. When you have spirituality and friendship and the family here, and then sexuality at the top, which will happen on the wedding night, this is a very stable marriage. But unfortunately, we have many marriages that start with the sexuality, and then the baby comes. And then somewhere in there, usually the woman is trying to make the man a Christian. And yet when they met, it was not about Christianity. So this one will just fall over. It's very unstable. So let's be keeping sex for the marriage, the wedding night, and it will be a very beautiful thing, like icing on the cake. So. Have I run out of time? I just wanted to mention artificial contraception and natural family planning now that I'm a natural family planning consultant. So artificial contraception is we have talked about telling a lie with your body language. It has multiple adverse effects spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Natural family planning, nothing artificial is introduced. And it is not Catholic contraception. Some people mistakenly call it that. Scott Hahn is a Protestant pastor who realized that there was a very big difference between when he was using contraceptive sex, and when they were not using contraception. So he got very confused, and he said, you know what? How come it's only the Catholic Church that talks about the difference between our marital embrace when we're using contraceptives and when we're not? So he decided to look more and more into it. And all these things that I've told you about telling a lie with your body and having marital problems when you're using contraception, he found to be true. So natural family planning is a very effective birth control, and it will keep your conjugal love fresh. Yeah, so according to the World Health Organization, 93% of women who can identify their symptoms between the fertile and infertile phases of the menstrual cycle. So this is recognized by the World Health Organization. Very healthy, no adverse effects, and keeps your marital love intact. So the final one is this inhibited love. This is when people marry when they're still wounded, psychological trauma. They have attachment trauma, and they're not able to give their whole heart. So there's an inability to love faithfully, divided attention. And we've already talked about self-love deficit disorder. So you can find that such people will be settling for conditional or limited love. And so there are many people who are in this, but they can be helped with counseling. You know, if you grew up in a dysfunctional family with abuse, with neglect, household dysfunction, abandonment, and rejection, this alters our worldview. And so you get attachment trauma. There's one secure attachment style. Attachment style is how you show up in relationships as a result of your family of origin. So a secure person, we all aim to be secure, is comfortable with intimacy, and both intimacy and independent, trust their partners. Then you have somebody with anxious attachment, craves closeness. By the way, we also have an Linda Vijana initiative presentation on attachment styles. So I'm not going to go into the really details. An anxiously attached person craves closeness, but fears abandonment, may appear clingy. Avoidantly attached person values intimacy over independence over intimacy. They appear distant. Usually an anxious person will always be chasing after the avoidant person. So the disorganized attachment is somebody who is both anxious and avoidant. So you desire connection, but you also fear it. So you push and pull in relationship. You desire connection, but when somebody shows love, you run away. So the most important thing is through your healing, you become securely attached. All right. So there's biblical verses that you can check on. And yeah, the married bed is an altar. Let marriage be honored among all, and the marriage bed be kept undefiled, for God will judge the immoral and adulterers. So this verse emphasizes that sexual intimacy is sacred, restricted to husband and wife, and should not be polluted by immorality. So in order to get love in your life, you need to practice loving kindness, cultivate an attitude of gratitude. This is the disposition that makes you more loving. Practice self-care. Like we said, we cannot give or love others well when we are anxious, resentful, or empty. And take friendships deeply. Move beyond surface activity. Ask the people in your inner circle about their struggles, their fears, and what they are passionate about. So we will probably have a session specifically on friendship because it seems to be the most neglected one in our society. Is OPP still there? Ama melala.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
How
I
much
think
more time do I have?
there is no more time. It's 9:12.
So this is a good book you can get, 5 Love Languages, and learn how to. Everybody has a particular love language. I'm sure you will be able to identify yours. Mine is words of affirmation and quality time, like use kind, encouraging, positive words to express gratitude and appreciation. Spend quality time. Try to identify your friend's love language. Acts of service like performing helpful tasks, receiving gifts. For me, this is the last one. I don't know why. Give thoughtful and meaningful presents, which show you've considered their preferences. Other people have physical touch as their love language. So try to speak your partner's or your friend's love language. There's also a very good book called His Needs, Her Needs for married couples, and how to create an affair-proof marriage. Men and women are different. So, but this is not cast in stone. For example, you might have a lady saying, "Oh, but I also want that. I also like that the list that is in men," or a man saying, "Oh, I also like some of the things that are in women." But these are two counselors who have been counseling for 30 years, and they've made a list of what everybody complains about. So men usually need sexual responsiveness, good home management, admiration and respect, a recreational companion, an attractive spouse. And women need affection. We need conversation, honesty and openness, financial stability, and family support. So these are some very good books you can check on. So rules that the manufacturer is God. God is the one who made us. So you have this person saying, I'm going to jump off. God has made the commandments, yeah? And this one is saying, I hate being confined by this fence. I'm jumping over it. And his friend is telling him, wait, it's not a fence. Guess what? God loves us so much, and that's why he gave us the rules, yeah? So it's a guardrail. And so he's obviously going to fall over the cliff. So when you see these rules and regulations of just know that God is acting completely out of love. And the consequences of chastity. What is chastity? Living a pure life. Yeah. So consequences of unchastity, heartbreak, HIV, abortion, child abandonment, loss of self-esteem. You've seen them in our society. Perversion, medical costs, depression,
Dr.
suicide,
Are you
infertility.
finishing soon?
Yeah, just about to finish. Infections, death, overburdened grandparents. Do you see all these things of that are the results of unchastity, infidelity in marriage, loss of self-esteem, multiple sexual partners, single parents, baby daddy, baby mommy situation, drug and alcohol abuse? All these come out of disordered sex. Yeah. But the consequences of chastity are security, intimacy, contentedness, and happiness. So maybe we can just briefly say the prayer together. Dear Jesus, please heal us from the wounds caused by any repressive or puritanical approaches to sexuality, which may have masqueraded as Christianity in our upbringing. Show us the truth about the body and sex that will set us free to love in God's image. So I'm currently doing a theology of the body course. Yeah. So that is love, huh? Not the love hearts you've been seeing on Valentine's Day. We all need inner healing. Acknowledge your woundedness to parent your inner child, to give and receive genuine love. So the human life cycle on authentic human sexuality should be taught from primary school. And the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Gender, Culture, and Arts and Heritage should be collapsed into a Ministry of Family Well-being with a division for family health. And ladies need to be taught about the fertility cycle. We were all lied to that we will ovulate on the 14th day, but there are various stages of the cycle that women need to be taught. and to be aware. So thank you for listening to me. The truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose and it will defend itself. Over to you. And
I don't know where he has vanished to, but thank you so much for the
okay.
sharing
Mm-hmm.
and the great session. As usual, there is
Okay.
a lot to learn and also to unlearn. And
Yeah.
I personally look forward to the following sessions of the year. There's so much we need to learn. There's so much we are afraid of talking about, especially openly, and it is really costing us at the end of it all. Because especially when you're saying we call the parts as it is or the actions as they are, uh,
Yeah.
uh, it's not back then when simple words or warnings would help. Right now, you
Yes.
fail to share exactly what you're talking about. Social media is there to teach them in more open ways and confuse them. So personally, thank you so much. We
Okay.
usually have these sessions every first Friday of the month. Um, and we can always reach out to Dr. Eda to have sessions in our spaces, in our churches, in our workplaces, under her consultancy called Wastahili. And she's a great speaker to have, especially if you're having a whole day or half day engagement. So from me as Catherine and also as part of Linda Vijana Leadership, I wish to thank you very much for this session and for the many sessions that you have always hosted and shared with us. Let me see who are still here. There's Pamela who joined very early. Kindly unmute, also maybe say a word and then pray for us. Thank you.
Okay.
Pamela?